Screech by Taran NCT on AO3. Episode 33, Chapter 34. Izuku sat back and just took in the decor of his new room. He and Hitoshi had been allowed to come to the dorms a day earlier than the rest of the class to set up their rooms, since Dad and Pa had to come to the school to ensure that everything was prepared for their classes. And Izuku had decided to decorate his room differently than how his room was at home. He hadn't felt as though his living arrangements were stable enough to really ask for what he wanted when he started living with his new family, but now they were stuck with him, and he was never letting them go. The first change he made for his dorm room was removing the overhead light. While Izuku could easily handle bright lights, able to switch freely between dark and day vision, he preferred the darkness. Things seemed quieter and less stimulating, even if they weren't. To help his room be even darker, he also replaced the curtains with dark green blackout curtains over the balcony. They could easily be pulled open if he had a guest in his room, but if it was just him, the room was as dark as night. He had managed to paint his room too. He went with a light green with the brown trim. He knew there was a good chance of having guests, and some would stay even past nightfall, so Izuku had replaced the overhead lights with green LED lights running through the ceiling. They weren't bright enough for guests to do something like reading, but Izuku hadn't set up his room for group study anyways. Keigo had taken him and Toshi to the mall to pick out beddings for their beds, and Izuku had picked out a dark green bedspread and the brown sheets. Hitoshi had joked that he was making his room into a forest theme, and Izuku had smiled and said that's exactly what he was doing. The only thing he was bringing from his room at home were the two plushies that stayed on his bed. A Pichu named Kamichu, and a Rowlette named Owl Izuku. There came a knock at his door and Izuku opened it. Hitoshi blinked and squinted at the darkness. Dude, I can't see a thing. Izuku laughed and clicked on the LED lights. Better? Better enough for me to not trip as I open your damn curtains. Hitoshi murmured as he did exactly that. As the curtains were opened, Hitoshi took a look around and hummed in appreciation. It looks better than I thought it would. I'm thinking about putting a tree details on the wall, but I decided to just leave it like that. Izuku smiled at his room. Are you done setting up yours? Hitoshi nodded. Unlike you, I left the lights alone, so it didn't nearly take as long. Izuku blew his bangs out of his face with an annoyed huff. I wanted to do something different. Izuku defended himself. Hitoshi laughed. You know, Takami is going to do something similar, right? I doubt he'll do the green lights, but I'm sure he'll take out the lights in his room. Shrugging, Izuku said, Probably, but we like the dark, so why not take out the lights? He tugged on Hitoshi's sleeve. I want to see a room now. They left Izuku's room and went to the one next door. It's nothing special. They left Izuku's room and went to the one next door. It's nothing special. Hitoshi shrugged as he opened the door. Hitoshi's room looked similar to his room at home. A lot of teal and black. Hitoshi's favorite color was teal, but he always said that he looked bad in it, claiming that teal clashed with his purple hair and eyes. Izuku didn't think that was true, but what does he know? He actually likes wearing shirts that say socks on it. Izuku glanced around and saw that all the provided furniture had been replaced by black furniture. The drapes on the patio were glazed black with an extra layer of teal blackout curtains. And he painted his walls a dark teal. His bedding was a mess of teal gray and black germonic patterns, with spirals and circles at the most prominent. The cute part of the entire room had to be the plushy cat sitting on Hitoshi's pillow. A perfectly split down the middle red and white cat. You brought Kiroroki! Izuku laughed happily. You say that as if you didn't bring Aoi Izuku and Kamchu. Hitoshi lightly shoved Izuku. The next day, everyone had met up in the front of the new 1A dorm building, Heights Alliance, and Hitoshi was waiting with them for Dad to show up. It was still fairly early in the morning, and Izuku was having a really hard time staying awake, so Denki was carrying Izuku on his back while he slept. Hitoshi was surprised that he was still sleeping, since the gathered class wasn't being very quiet, but Izuku really had been lethargic for the past few days. Hey, Shinsou! Ashita walked up to him and gave Izuku a concerned look. What's up with Midoriya? Is he okay? Hitoshi nodded. Yeah, he's fine. Something happened recently? I think Dad's going to explain when he gets here. She nodded and walked back to where Kirishima was, and most likely shared what Hitoshi had told her. It didn't take much longer for Dad to show up. Alright, Hellspawn, listen up. Behind me is your new home for the remainder of your time at UA, Heights Alliance. I have low expectations for your behavior while here, but please do not make me lower the bar further. There's a few lists of rules that are to be followed, but I'll tell you the most important ones now. Do not set the dorm on fire. Do not break holes in the wall. Do not destroy the furniture. Who am I kidding? Let me rephrase that. Dad sighed in defeat. Do not set the dorm on fire more than once a week. Do not break holes in the walls more than once a week. Do not destroy the furniture more than once a week. Hitoshi would have laughed at that, but he remembered that while Shouta was absolutely amazing, he could not cook. The threat of fire in the kitchen was very real. Come to think of it, he didn't think Momo knew how to cook either. Now, I had originally planned to discuss this over the camp, but it will be cut short, so I will say it now. Hitoshi tilted his head, a little curious, to where this was going. Ojiro, Uraraka, and Sato. Oh, Hitoshi knew where this was going. The three of you performed partially poorly at the camp. I was going to give you until the end of the camp to set yourself straight before we dropped down to General Ed. But now you have until the start of term. The three of them looked at each other in mild panic before turning their attention back to Dad, who continued. There's going to be an event before the start of the term, and it's either a pass or fail event. If you do not pass, you will not be continuing to 1A. Am I clear? Sato and Uraraka both gulped and nodded with a quick, "Yes, sensei." Hitoshi thought Ojiro, however, might have been suffering brain damage recently because he said, "But, sensei, that's not fair. How can you punish us over this when Midoriya didn't even bother showing up? And even now, he's just sleeping and not paying attention to anything of what's going on." Dad narrowed his eyes at Ojiro and then grinned. Oh no. That was his happy yet sadistic grin. Ojiro was not about to have a good time. I thought I made myself clear on the first day of class. Dad said, the world isn't fair. Since you seem so worried about Izuku, I will tell you why he is being exempt from this. Everyone was looking at him expectantly. I'm sure you all remember the student that was expelled during the first week of school. Yes? He paused as everyone nodded. Shortly before the camp started, he found and attacked Izuku while at the mall. 7 were injured, and 5 were killed in the attack, all while Izuku was the target. He's not in the right headspace to attend camp. Furthermore, when Hitoshi was abducted, Izuku joined the raid team to retrieve him. In battle, he was injured. He is temporarily unable to use his wings. He is using a lot of stamina to heal his injuries, so he will fall asleep often. He should be fully recovered before the second term starts. You let him go to a raid? Kirishima piped up, banging his fists together. That's so manly! Wait! Ashido exclaimed, loud enough to where Izuku, deep asleep, let out a small hoot in protest, and buried his face in Denki's neck. The news said that Mike-sensei worked with a UA student to beat the villain that killed All Might. That was Mito? I thought they were talking about an older student. Ashido. Hitoshi hissed at her. When she looked at him, he hissed again, and gestured at Izuku, who was once again stirring up on Denki's back. Shh, don't wake him up. Izuku let out a sleepy chirp, but fell asleep again quickly. Ashido whispered back a quick, sorry, and covered her mouth. Dad nodded at the class. Go inside. I'm trusting you to keep things down to an uproar. Try not to wake up Izuku. Hitoshi, you know where the room assignments are. I'm going to have a discussion with Ojiro. Then I'll be inside. Hitoshi watched as Ojiro gulped, and then he led the rest of the class inside. Whatever Dad had discussed with him was none of their business, though. Hitoshi was fairly sure that the tailed boy would be joining them in Heights Alliance for the upcoming school year. All right, Hitoshi said. Over there are the elevators, but you could also take the stairs. Left side is boys, right is girls. Here's a list of who has what room, and your names are also on the dorms. Hitoshi gestured to the room assignment chart, and then stood aside as everyone started looking. Wait a minute. Jiro murmured, confused. Who's Takami? Yeah, and where's Midori Bros? Asked Kirishima. Hitoshi blinked at them and smacked his forehead. That's right. His name already got updated. Hitoshi grinned at everyone. You all know Izuku's been living with me and Dad for a while. Well, my dad adopted him. Izuku got to change his name, and as you all know, he's not really a big fan of Midoriya. So, he changed it. His new name is Takami Izuku. Izuku chirped happily. I almost went with Shinsou, but almost everyone still calls Toshi that. Izuku kissed Denki on the cheek, and slid down to sit on his own. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Izu-chan, kiddo, croaked Ashido. I'm glad to see you're feeling better. Thanks, Su-chan. He turned to Denki. You're on the 3rd floor. I'll help you set your room if you want. We're waiting for Dad. He's still outside talking to Ojiro. Hitoshi interjected before Izuku could drag Denki upstairs. Oh. He croaked his head and winced. Yeah, he won't be long. Sure enough, Dad entered alone a few minutes later. Uraraka and Sachiro paled, coming to the same conclusion Hitoshi had. Ojiro was expelled. Alright, now where was I? Dad asked as he returned to address the remaining 15 students. Ah, yes. Some of you may have noticed that neither Hagakure nor Ayamama are present. They have both decided to drop out of the hero course. While you may still see Hagakure on campus, as she has transferred to the business course, Ayama has returned to France. There was a shocked silence among the students, none having thought that anyone would willingly drop out of the hero course. Dad nodded and continued on with his speech. You have the rest of today to get settled into your new rooms, and figure out some method for assigning chores. If you don't have a chore schedule by tomorrow, I'll be making you one. He waited for everyone to nod in acknowledgement. Good. Now, if you need me for anything, you all know how to reach me. I'm gonna go take a nap. And with that, Dad left them to fend for themselves. Izuku yawned as he stepped into the gym with the rest of his classmates. Dad had told them all to change into the hero costumes and meet in the gym, so here he was, practically asleep on his feet, but ready to participate. One of the main goals of the training camp was for you all to get ready to take your provisional license exam before the start of the next term. The first week was supposed to strengthen your quirk, while the second was supposed to be working on your super moves. Dad stated, looking around at everyone. You all should at least have 2 super moves, and since the camp was cut short, you'll be working on them here. There was excited clamor among the students, before Sero raised his hand. Can you give us an example of a super move? Dad shrugged, and pointed lazily at Izuku. He's got a few of them. His Screech is probably the most obvious, but that's not to say that his talents, and the way he uses them, also don't count. As does his silent fights. These are all just 3 of his moves. As for myself, I have my Blinding Cough as a super move. He shrugged. Your super move doesn't have to do with your quirk. It just needs to be something that gives you an advantage. As the cloud spreads out in the gym, with Ectoplasm's clones, Izuku yawns again, and starts towards a clone of his own, when Dad places a hand on his shoulder. You already have a super move, as well as your license. Instead of joining with these classes, I'm gonna have you meet up with Nezu instead. Okay, so moving forward, at least for now, don't bother changing into my costume, and just go to Nezu's office? Yes. Okay, I'll change back and head there now, I guess. Izuku asked. Try to keep the world domination to a minimum, okay? Dad joked. Izuku chirped and headed back to the locker to change. Once he was done, he went into the school and headed up to Nezu's office. Ah, Izuku-kun. Nice of you to join me. Oh my, okay, that was an elimination. That was an assassination. Jesus. Obviously not like a literal assassination, but damn. So many got knocked out. Damn. Okay, alright, I see you. Okay, Alright, okay. Clearly someone doesn't have favorites. I'm not gonna say anything on it. I don't touch upon it. There is some students in UA that I feel sometimes I just don't clash with, or I don't pay attention to. Some of the ones that you exited out are some of those students. Uraraka isn't necessarily one, but you haven't exited that one out. I How did Hagakure get in? That's my only question. There is some students where I'm sitting, it's like, how the fuck did you get in? Right, like, Hitoshi didn't get in, but you got in? Shit ain't adding up. Shit ain't adding up, you know, kind of thing. But, I don't have anything to say about this chapter other than no lights in your room is a mood. Look, the only source of light in my room is the small shiver of light that comes through the curtains of my room. And, not even the curtains, the blinds. And, my LED lights that I have on my desk. So for the most part, my room is pitch dark. It also explains why my cat absolutely loves it in my room. I heard cats like, what's it called? Not quiet places. Well, yeah, they like quiet places, but they also like, dark places. And for the most part, as long as I'm not recording, I'm pretty quiet. Except when I'm listening to Spotify and either a musical or Melanie Martinez drops up, then my cat fucking hates me. Storm hates me because I start belting out to Melanie Martinez or some theater song. So, yeah. Other than that, I'm relatively quiet and my room is relatively dark. So, I can agree with Midori Bro there. Or, sorry. God, I have to look at the how to pronounce again. Takami. I have to agree with Takami. No, I'm just gonna call him Izuku. I have to agree with Izuku there. Yeah, I like the dark. Maybe not as dark as Izuku is. The pitch black. That's pushing it a little too far, but I agree with Izuku. You know. Anyways, as always, my raindrops. Make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.